New details this Thursday night about the New Orleans terror suspect.
He was 100% inspired by ISIS.
What he was carrying in his vehicle and what police are still trying to figure out. The U.S. soldier believed to be behind this blast in Las Vegas. What happened moments before? When domestic abuse spreads, the calls to protect not only victims, but members of their support system, too. Big cash, what Canada's top CEOs are raking in compared to the average worker. And from Holocaust survivor to the queen of gymnastics.
I wanted to see the world.
The remarkable life of Hungarian Olympian Ágnes Keleti.
Global National with Donna Friesen. Reporting tonight, Nitu Garcha.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. There are some major developments tonight involving the man who plowed a pickup truck into a packed New Year's crowd in New Orleans. The FBI now says the driver, Shamsuddin Jabbar, acted alone in the attack that killed 14 people and injured dozens more. Among them, families say there was an aspiring nurse, a football star, and a single mother. A moment of silence was held ahead of today's rescheduled college football quarterfinal to honor the victims. Investigators also revealed Jabbar made 5 social media posts in the hours before the attack, professing allegiance to the so-called Islamic State. Bianca Fascini has our top story tonight.
One day after the deadly New Year's terror attack, downtown New Orleans is open again.
People in New Orleans are sending an unmistakable message. They will not let this attack or the attackers' deluded ideology overcome us.
Tens of thousands flooding back to the city today as it hosts the Sugar Bowl, part of the college football playoffs, just steps from Wednesday night's tragedy.
When I was coming out of the hotel to go on this coffee run this morning, there were dozens of people with Georgia stuff on that were checking out. And I didn't get a chance to talk to any of them, but my guess is that a lot of them have decided just to head home.
14 people were killed and more than 30 others were injured early Wednesday after a man drove into crowds of people on Bourbon and Canal Streets. The suspect, 42-year-old Shamsuddin Jabbar, was killed in a shootout with police. Investigators say they found an ISIS flag and possible improvised explosive devices in his car.
He was 100% inspired by ISIS.
Jabbar is said to have driven to New Orleans from Houston on December 31st and posted 5 videos on social media on the morning of the attack that showed he was clearly inspired by the Islamic State and joined the militant group before the summer of 2024.
Jabbar explains he originally planned to harm his family and friends, but was concerned the news headlines would not focus on the, quote, war between the believers and the disbelievers, end quote.
IEDs were also discovered throughout the city's French Quarter neighborhood, leading authorities to believe less than a day ago that he may have had accomplices, a position that has now changed.
We do not assess at this point that anyone else involved in this attack is involved in this attack.
The FBI says they're still investigating why the 42-year-old Army vet, born and raised in Texas, chose New Orleans specifically for this attack, but do consider it terrorism. And looking ahead, New Orleans is also preparing to host the Super Bowl next month, which is typically a very high security event. But in the wake of yesterday's attack, we could see a heavier police presence this year. Nitu?
All right, Bianca Fascini in Washington. Thanks, Bianca. The FBI now says there is no definitive link between the New Orleans attack and the Tesla Cybertruck explosion outside the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas yesterday. Police have identified the man they believe is behind the explosion. He's a 37-year-old highly decorated soldier with the U.S. Special Forces who was on leave from active duty. Investigators say he shot himself in the head right before the vehicle burst into flames. Kyle Benning reports on the effort to pinpoint the motive.
The explosion occurs within 17 seconds of his arrival at the valet.
Investigators are releasing new details, including the name of the man they believe died in a Tesla Cybertruck in front of the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas. Police identifying him as Matthew Livelsberger, a U.S. military member who took his own life.
The individual had sustained a gunshot wound to the head prior to the detonation of the vehicle.
The FBI, ATF, and Las Vegas police trying to put together a motive. Federal agents executing a search warrant at a Colorado home the Bureau says is linked to the New Year's Day blast. Police say Livelsberger was burned beyond recognition and are still waiting on medical records for confirmation. But his passport, military ID, phone, and 2 semi-automatic handguns legally purchased in his name 2 days earlier were found in the car. Using data from stops he made to charge his rented Tesla truck, authorities say Livelsberger traveled through Colorado, New Mexico, and Arizona before entering Nevada.
It's not lost on us that it's in front of, of the Trump building, that it's a Tesla vehicle, but we don't have information at this point that definitively tells us or suggests it was because of this particular ideology.
In both Vegas and New York City, police are on high alert with increased presence around buildings bearing the president-elect's name. The feds note this investigation is global in scale. Livelsberger was on leave while stationed in Germany as a Green Beret and worked in counterterrorism, even being deployed to Afghanistan twice. The explosion was largely confined to the car, with the Las Vegas sheriff saying glass of the hotel was not impacted.
That most of that, the materials inside that Tesla were fuel to help fuel a greater explosion.
Las Vegas police say Tesla is sending a team to help the investigation to try and salvage any video from the Cybertruck. Kyle Benning, Global News, Toronto.
To breaking news out of Ottawa, former Liberal Cabinet Minister Marco Mendicino has announced he will not be seeking re-election. The former Immigration and Public Safety Minister says it was an honor of a lifetime to serve, but this was the right decision for him and his family. Mendicino was dropped from Cabinet in 2023. He's the latest Liberal to leave federal politics as calls continue to grow for Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to step down. There has been another horrific act of domestic violence just days after the killing of a Calgary mother and grandfather. In Halifax, police now say the fatal shooting of a 40-year-old woman and her 73-year-old father on New Year's Eve was a result of intimate partner violence. Heather Yourex-West reports on the disturbingly similar tragedies, sparking calls for the government to take action.
The new year began in Halifax with an all too familiar crime.
Upon arrival, officers located a vehicle with a deceased female inside as well as an unresponsive male. That male was later taken to the hospital where he died of his injuries.
A 40-year-old woman and her 73-year-old dad, victims of an intimate partner violence-related crime. Police say the accused later died by suicide.
No one should ever experience something like this. No one is ever prepared for something like this.
But Peter Wardzala's family is currently navigating a similar pain. His sister, Anya Wardzala-Kaminski, and their dad, Stanislaw Wardzala, were murdered in Calgary on Sunday. A mother of 3 and a beloved elementary school teacher, Wardzala-Kaminski had been planning to leave her husband at the time of the attacks.
She said that basically she was done. She did not want that relationship anymore.
Experts say leaving an abusive relationship can often be the most dangerous time and highest risk of homicide, not only for the woman fleeing the relationship, but members of her support system too.
When a perpetrator has decided to kill their partner, they have often planned to die by suicide as well. And when they're moving toward that end goal, killing other victims, such as children, extended family members, or others who have assisted the victim in the past, may be part of that plan.
It's why advocates say there is a need for greater legal protection for victims and more accountability for abusers before situations are allowed to escalate. The Canadian Femicide Observatory for Justice and Accountability tracks the names of gender-based killings. Up until December 10th, it counted 172 victims last year, the holidays adding 2 more, leaving bereaved families to face a new year devastated and forever changed. Heather Yourex-West, Global News, Calgary.
If you or someone you know needs help, you can go to sheltersafe.ca. There you'll find all the provincial and territorial resources available to connect anyone in search of assistance with the nearest shelter. A Canadian man has died after being caught in an avalanche in Utah. 38-year-old David Etier was on a backcountry mountain near Salt Lake City with his dog when the snow gave way. The Quebec man is being remembered as an experienced outdoorsman who was splitboarding at the time, using a snowboard that splits into skis. A multi-day search and rescue operation was launched before his body was found. After a warmer than usual holiday season, winter is back with a vengeance in parts of Ontario. Towns like Orillia could see up to 60 centimeters of snow tonight thanks to a snow squall. The intense, short-lived burst of heavy snowfall is expected to hit sections north of the Greater Toronto area. Drivers in the region are being told to stay off the roads if possible. Winter weather advisories are also in place in BC, Quebec, Newfoundland and Labrador, as well as the 3 territories. A new report released today has named Canada's 100 highest paid CEOs as of 2023. In the top 10 is Shopify's Toby Lutka, who made nearly $27 million in stock options that year. That's still nowhere near the man at the top of the list, Patrick Davigi of waste management company GFL Environmental. Here, north of $45 million. Those numbers are in a different realm from what the average Canadian usually earns in a year or even a lifetime. As Anne Gaviola explains, despite some recent improvements, the pay gap between CEOs and their workers remains incredibly vast.
By 10:54 a.m. on January 2nd, Canada's richest CEOs will have made more money than the average worker makes all year.
CEOs make 210 times what the average worker makes, and it's hard to conceptualize just how much more that is.
A lot more than in 1998, when the ratio was 104 times. A new report from the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives shows Canada's 100 highest paid CEOs received $13.2 million in compensation on average. Not a record, but right up there after 2 years in a row of record gains. Much of the compensation increase is in the form of bonuses, a cash cow when times are good and when times are tough.
If those profits come back down to earth, the CEOs still do really well because of the way the bonus formulas work. Over 80% of CEO pay is in the form of bonuses, either cash bonuses, stock bonuses, or stock option bonuses.
Only 3 women make the list, and they're outnumbered by men named Scott or Michael.
And they've always been an all-boys club, and there's no indication that that is changing.
What's changed among the rank and file is a 7% increase in wages this past year. Pay raises as a result of labor action helped narrow the gap between everyday workers and those in the corner office.
Completely out of touch.
Public anger over corporate greed seems to have reached a tipping point. Case in point, the collective support for America's most notorious accused CEO killer on Saturday Night Live.
Luigi Mangione dropped... Yeah, definitely woo. You're wooing for justice, right?
Though unpopular when first announced, this summer's changes to the capital gains tax inclusion rate takes aim at the wealthiest, forcing capital gains of more than $250,000 to be taxed a little more like regular working income.
There's 5 people on this list that will likely owe over $800 million more in taxes because of this one change.
Anne Gaviola, Global News, Toronto.
Employees of Taiwanese shipping giant Evergreen got an incredibly generous year-end surprise for 2024. This week, the company announced they were receiving bonuses equivalent to 20 months of their salary. According to local media outlets, the bonuses amount to more than 52,000 Canadian dollars based on an average monthly salary of around $2,600. And it's not even the largest bonus Evergreen has offered in recent years. Back in 2022, the company surprised its employees with year-end bonuses equivalent to 52 months of salary. The investigation into South Korea's aviation disaster. Coming up, what the airline's chief executive has been ordered not to do. Plus, Dinosaur Highway, what's being dug up in southern England. In Gaza, Israeli strikes killed at least 54 Palestinians, including at least 11 sheltering in a tent encampment, according to medics. Palestinians inspected the damage at the Al-Mawasi camp, an Israeli-declared humanitarian safe zone in southern Han Yunis. Mourners gathered at Gaza's Nasser hospital Thursday, where some of the bodies were transported. Hamas-run Al-Aqsa TV reported the director of Gaza's police department and his aide were killed. Israel has repeatedly targeted police during 15 months of war, hindering the delivery of aid. The Israeli military said its strikes were aimed at Hamas militants. And in Montenegro, 12 people were killed in a shooting rampage yesterday. 2 children are among the dead, and 4 others were injured in the attack that happened after a bar brawl. The shooter, who fled after the violence, was located and surrounded by police. He died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. In South Korea, police have raided the offices of Jeju Air and the operator of Muon International Airport. The airline's chief executive has also been banned from leaving the country. It's all part of South Korea's investigation into Sunday's plane crash, which killed 179 people. South Korea is observing 7 days of national mourning for the victims of the tragedy. Right to learn. Ahead, Canadians helping Afghan women and girls in the face of growing oppression. Canadian organizations are continuing vital work to support women and girls in Afghanistan despite growing challenges. This week, the Taliban issued a stark warning to non-governmental organizations operating in the country. It reminded charities of a ban on hiring Afghan women. There's also a fresh decree prohibiting windows in new buildings near areas where women may be visible. As Heidi Petrachik explains, one Canadian group is determined to help Afghan women, even if it means doing so from a distance.
It's a reminder of the restrictive regime women in Afghanistan live under. A letter obtained by Global News in which Taliban authorities spell out a warning to NGOs on the ground: employ Afghan women and lose your permission to be in the country. A ban first introduced in 2022.
With this enforcement of this law, NGOs cannot continue their activities. They cannot assist women and children.
We want to have our own rights.
Canadian-based charity Right to Learn Afghanistan has offered education programs to Afghan women and girls for more than 2 decades. When the Taliban took over again in 2021, the organization had to pivot.
We have been adapting our programs to be able to deliver it even in the critical situation that we are going through now.
It now remotely offers resources women can access online,
so that it is safe and possible for women and girls to continue accessing quality education from their safe corner of their houses.
At home is where Afghan women are being increasingly confined. Taliban decrees ban them from education beyond grade 6, require they be completely covered in public and stay out of parks and other community spaces. Women's voices are prohibited from being heard singing, reciting, or reading aloud in public.
This is absolutely the wrong path.
The United Nations has condemned the ban on Afghan women working for NGOs.
We urge the de facto authorities in Afghanistan to reverse this deeply discriminatory decree and all other measures which seek to eradicate women and girls' access to education, work, and public services.
Since the Taliban warning was issued, a coordinating body for NGOs has said female workers in health and education are exempt from the ban. But several groups with staff in Afghanistan tell Global News they're operating with extreme caution amidst what the UN has called gender apartheid. Heidi Petrachik, Global News, Halifax.
Next, a survivor turned legend, remembering the incredible life of the world's oldest Olympic champion. Researchers in southern England have unearthed what they call a dinosaur highway. It was first discovered last summer when a quarry worker noticed several unusual bumps while digging up clay. Those bumps turned out to be 200 dinosaur tracks believed to date back 166 million years. The Jurassic prints will be shown at a new exhibit at Oxford University's museum next week. People around the world are joining Hungarians in mourning a true legend today. Ágnes Keleti was the world's oldest living Olympian medalist when she died this morning at the age of 103. She was a Holocaust survivor who went on to win 10 Olympic medals, including 5 golds, all in her 30s. Redmond Shannon looks back at the life of the woman who was dubbed the Queen of Gymnastics.
At the age of 95, Ágnes Keleti was still doing what she always did best, despite doctors warning her against it. Her sense of humour saw her through a remarkable life. Keleti won her first national Hungarian gymnastics title in 1940, but a year later was thrown off the team because she was Jewish. Keleti described how she avoided Nazi death camps by exchanging papers with a Christian girl and going into hiding as a maid. Her father was killed at Auschwitz. After the war, she resumed gymnastics. She won 4 medals at the 1952 Olympics and then became the most successful athlete in Melbourne 4 years later, winning 6 more at the age of 35. A record that still stands today as the oldest ever female Olympic gymnastic champion. Keleti said she never got nervous.
I was competing not because I liked it, but I did it because I wanted to see the world.
During the 56 Games, the Hungarian Revolution broke out, followed by the brutal Soviet crackdown. Keleti applied for asylum in Australia, later settling in Israel, where she coached the national team. Keleti spent her final years back in Hungary, where she marked her 100th birthday. These 100 years feel like 60 to me. I love life, she said. In 2023, she broke her last record, becoming the longest living Olympic champion ever. Ágnes Keleti passed away just 1 week before her 104th birthday. Redmond Shannon, Global News, London.
What an incredible life. That is Global National for this Thursday night. I'm Neetu Garcha. Tonight's Your Canada is historic Dunvegan Provincial Park in Fairview, Alberta. Thanks for watching and hope you'll join us again tomorrow. Have a great night.